Okay, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another video. I appreciate you guys tuning in as always. Got something that I am super excited to showcase to you guys for once. It's a new bait that kind of just hit the market. And if you guys have been following me for any extended time at all, you guys know I don't really follow trends. I don't get excited about new products in the fishing industry very much because I'm a very simplistic fisherman when it comes down to it, both in fresh and salt water. I'm one of those guys where if it's not broke, don't fix it. If it worked then, it'll work now. And I know what I like. I know what I use. And I just try to keep it as simple as possible for my own sake. But every once in a while, a bait hits the industry where you kind of go, ooh, that looks good. That's a little different. I have situations where that'll come into play. And those guys really nailed it this time. And that's kind of what we're dealing with here. So what I finally got my hands on is these are the new K-Tail swim baits by the company No Live Bait Needed. You guys are probably familiar with them by now. If not, they're a local company down here in South Florida. At the end of the day, I kind of grew up fishing with these guys, chasing snook and tarpon all around the south and east and west coast of Florida. Really good guys. And not only are they great snook and tarpon fishermen, they're great bass fishermen as well. And they are amazing bait designers when it comes down to it. The cool thing about having baits that are designed by people that are actually out in the field on a daily, or in their case, a nightly basis, is they know how to fill a void that we're missing in the fishing industry. So for instance, you guys might be familiar with the name of the company through my channel. You guys know when I do the few inshore snook and tarpon videos I've done, I use a lot of their products. One being, this is the No Live Bait Needed Lil Mullet. Okay, this is their 5-inch version. They make it also in an 8 and a 3-inch. Great bait, very versatile. It's essentially just a tricked out, very realistic looking fluke style bait. You guys see me throw this at rolling tarpon. I skip it under trees for snook, under boat docks. But I also use this on Lake Okeechobee from time to time for sure. Kind of just making it come through fields of dollar pads. You could see, in case of like a Big Easy where I usually buzz it over the top, sometimes if I'm dealing with pressured fish, I'll literally just throw this out and just reel it. And this bait pushes a really big head wake, but has a very subtle action because it's a straight tail bait. This thing on the back of a chatterbait gets bit very well too. And a lot of times I'll throw it with no skirt on a chatterbait, just a chatterbait head or a scrounger head, and this thing gets bit. Doesn't hold up the best because it's not used or designed for that application. It's got a hook slit, so the bait will, rip open sometimes, but it does work very well, especially in the 5-inch. It's probably the most versatile. And then also something that's pretty cool is they're little, or they shouldn't say they're little. They're jig-headed swim baits that they have. All right, so their swim bait in itself, although it is just basically a swim bait tail, the profile on it's great. It's not too long. It's not too tall. It's got the perfect profile. But what's cool about their baits is they design jig heads around. Essentially, they design the jig head we need, and in the snook fishing world anyway, and they built the bait around it. So they make this swim bait in a 3-inch. They make it in a 8-inch, I believe, or a 9-inch, and they make it in a 5-inch bait. And the jig heads match up to them perfect. But what also makes them great is the hardware that they use along with it. All right. So in this case, this is a 3-inch little swim bait. This has got a little 1/2-ounce jig head, but I don't know if you guys can see it. It has got a man thick gauge hook in it. So when we're fishing for these 25 to 30 pound snook and we're downsizing to try and match the hatch, if they're small pilchard or small mullet in and around the bridges, you got to be able to hook that big fish, throw the small profile to get the bite, but you got to be able to put the heat on them to get them out from around those pilings or under the bridges and the fenders, whatever it might be. So with a lot of other small swim baits on the market, we had baits that got bit, we had baits that looked great, but you'd open the hooks up or whatever would happen. So they kind of filled that void, which is super cool. And this is the bait that I throw a lot of the times at those rolling tarpon in a lot of my videos, and it gets smoked. And you guys see I don't lose very many of them. So that's enough of a rant about them. Let's get to this swim bait. This thing is freaking awesome. All right. And I am excited to throw this at snook and tarpon, but I am very excited to throw this out here on Lake Okeechobee for big bass, because this is going to fill. I'm not a big swim bait guy, but I have a bunch of applications for this bait that I can't wait to get out there and try it on. And the one thing I'm going to talk to you guys about real quick is what sets this swim bait apart from a lot of other swim baits that are out on the market. All right. So the big swim bait craze is all the rave now. Everyone's making them, everyone's throwing them. But this thing is years in the making. They have been tinkering with this, perfecting it. And the when it first came out and they were teasing it, them making a big swim bait didn't catch my eye, but the action of this bait, they nailed it. They rocked it, and it is dead on. And what I mean by that is, in the swim bait world, or really in the fishing industry anymore, action is like the biggest thing. Companies want to put out how much action their bait puts off, whether it's a swim bait, a chatterbait, a jig trail, or whatever. How much movement there is in the bait. When it comes down to it, a lot of times when a bait fish or a fish in general is swimming along, it doesn't have a very abrupt action at all. It's a very subtle swim. It's a very subtle, what's the word I'm looking for? It's just a very subtle deal. A fish, when we're walking down the street, it's a very subtle thing, because it's what we do on a constant basis, just like these fish do. And when you spend countless thousands of hours standing on lighted bridges at night, seawalls, jetties, watching fish, essentially watching mullet pass through a bridge fender or through a bridge span, watching ladyfish or the bait that the snook we're targeting or feeding on swim, you're watching how these fish move through the water. You have a really good goal or a really good idea of what you want to match when it comes to a swimming action of your swim bait. And this thing is, it's awesome. All right. I threw it in my pond a little bit, and on one of them, I've got one rigged in the garage. It is as advertised. I tried to get some underwater footage for you guys, but my pond pets won't let that happen. As soon as this thing hits the water, they swallow it. That's not supposed to be a sales pitch. If I could throw this phone case in there and they're probably going to eat it because they're so spoiled. But just trying to drag this thing, it swims as advertised, and it's great. So if you look at this bait, you can kind of probably see it as I'm talking, just throwing this thing around. When you grab it, the body of the bait is a very dense, very hard plastic, okay, which is awesome because it's going to hold up very well under numerous fish. This spring lock is going to really get a good bite in there, so you're not going to lose a lot of the baits. But once you get past this anal fin here, you can even probably see it. Just if you shake this bait, the only thing that moves is that back quarter of the bait. So when you're swimming this bait through the water, whether you're waking it on top or letting it fall, the only thing that's actually really doing any movement at all is the back of that tail, which is exactly how a big silver mullet or a small finger mullet moves through the water. And when it comes down to it, that's how most fish in general move, whether it's a bass in itself or a big gizzard shad, a bluegill, a brim, anything like that. It's very subtle. There's not a lot of head movement. There's none of that. It's just the body remains straight and that tail does all the work. And they knocked it out of the park with this thing. If you look at it from the bottom, you could see it's like, I've never seen a bait that doesn't just gradually kind of feed down. I mean, once you get past this stomach and this anal fin, there's almost like a hump there. And I think that's what's keeping this bait true and straight and just letting that tail do its natural motion. This thing's going to be awesome. Now, this is I believe, the 7-inch. Yeah, this is the 7. They make this in a 5, which I have here. Same thing, same layout. And they also going to be making this deal in a 10-inch bait, which I'm also excited about, more on the snook side. But, this bait may look big, but these are the size shiners that I throw continuously on my guide trips. This is the size bait we want in the wintertime. So this bait, it's going to come, you're going to want to throw it on an EWG style hook. The 7-inch, they recommend a 10-aught, which is what I have here. And then the 5-inch, I believe it's a 5-aught that they recommend. So if you're dealing with pressured fish out here on the lake, anywhere where there's somewhat clean water, maybe the fish are very pressured, you want to bring this over submerged dying cattails, which is a pattern we've been running a lot here on the lake, unfortunately. If you're ever finding fish that are on edges of hard, cattail lines, gator grass lines, pennywort mats that maybe aren't deep enough to where you really want to put an 1.5 ounce weight in there, you want to mainly fish the edges. This bait that's what I'm excited to throw this bait on. You could wake this right along the edge. You can let it sink down and just swim it mid-water. It's something very natural. It's something very subtle, and it's something that the fish probably haven't seen. What's super cool about this, and I think a reason this is going to excel not just on Okeechobee, but down in the Everglades, wherever, anywhere down here in South Florida when it comes to bass fishing, is here's the deal. It's a bait fish profile. It's a mullet profile, but I mean, you could throw this thing on Lake Chickamauga on a main river ledge, and they will smoke this. You can make it look like whatever you need to look like. This will look like a gizzard shad. It'll do all that. But we have tons and tons of mullet that live here in the lake. All of our canals south of here, down in the Everglades, residential ponds, residential lakes, and housing developments, residential canals, they all have freshwater mullet living in them, and the bass feed on them a ton. They definitely do it out here on Okeechobee. Can't tell you how many times we've caught giant fish with mullet in their throat. So they're actively feeding on mullet continuously all the time anyway out here. So this will match shad if I'm around shad, but it's nothing for a fish to come up and hit a mullet out here on Okeechobee. Again, you can see just holding this bait. That's exactly how that bait moves through the water. I'm not moving my hands at all. It's like it just does it on its own. You can see that. That is what you want in a swim bait. Again, fishing with Jose, fishing with Brendan, like standing on these bridges all night, watching mullet swim under our feet. I mean, that's exactly what they look like. It's just a natural, very subtle tail movement, and that fish is moving in the current or he's moving down a seawall. There's nothing like this. There's no crazy head movement. It's just a nice, subtle tail movement like that. This thing's going to get smoked. Again, they did an awesome job designing it. They did it right. They took their time. And I like that they have it in different sizes. Here's the deal, though. I am going to tell you, check them out. Don't be afraid to go big, all right? You will catch a 2-pound bass on this 7-inch bait, no question about it. But also, elephants eat peanuts, match the hatch. This 5-inch is going to get absolutely devoured as well. But I'm not a big swim bait guy. I'm not. But this one really caught my attention. I finally got an order in on them. And, yeah, definitely check these things out. Support local companies. And, these guys are true fishermen. They fish, probably more than I do. And you could tell by their baits that they knocked it out of the park. So, again, this is the K-Tail swim bait by No Live Bait Needed. 5-inch, 7-inch. I think they're coming out with a 10. Check them out. Yeah, I'm definitely going to be doing so. So, appreciate you guys watching. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know where you would like to throw these at. And I'll see you guys on the next one.